The continuation of Identity V's story, The Cage of Yesteryear, has finally dropped. In this update, not only do we follow the Ashes of Memory game, which is implied to be the last Manor game in the storyline, we are also taken into a flashback of the Oletus Manor tragedy that happened when Alice was still a little girl. To be honest, this tragedy has been told many times through several characters' backstories connected to Oletus Manor, such as Alice, Burke, Bane, Bonbon, and Orpheus. Still, even with the new visualizations, many newcomers might struggle to understand the full picture of what really happened, especially since this update only shows the events of the incident itself on Alice's 6th birthday, the 5th of May, 1887. So in today's video, I want to walk you through the full Oletus Manor incident, what the Oletus Manor actually is, who Alice's family members are, who carried out the raid and why, and what happened afterward. I have covered this story before in my Alice backstory analysis, but with the additional details from the Cage of Yesteryear, which provides clearer visuals of the tragedy, I want to revisit it with you. A disclaimer though, the info in this video is deducted through clues available in the game, as well as discussion with lore enthusiasts. Therefore, this info should not be taken as coming from the game developers. This is merely fans' theory with foundations. Anyway, let's get going. The Oletus Manor is the place where the tragedy that befell Alice occurred. It was Alice's childhood home, as well as the site of the final game. According to Alice's second letter, as well as the ambiguous 6th letter from Helena, the Manor's location is confirmed to be in Glasgow, Scotland. The history of the Oletus Manor can be traced back to the 16th century. Orpheus, in the Affection System event, mentioned that the manor was originally built in that era by a celebrated naval officer who had just been granted a noble title. However, because his fame was built on the bloodshed of others, many believed the manor was cursed from the very beginning. Over the centuries, every owner and their family met tragic ends, further reinforcing its grim reputation. Despite these rumors, the manor still found buyers, mainly because its bad reputation made it extremely cheap. In the 19th century, a young couple purchased the property. This couple was Dennis DeRoss and his wife, known simply as Mistress DeRoss. The story of this couple can be traced mainly through the 2nd anniversary package, originally released in Chinese. Fortunately, thanks to dedicated fans, translations can be found online, and the entire story has also been compiled on the wiki. According to that document, Dennis was an artist, while his wife was a composer. The couple had been well known in the art world for some time, so it is reasonable that they were very wealthy. Both Dennis and his wife shared a deep love for the arts. To reflect that passion, Dennis began renovating the manor, filling it with symbols and inspirations from Greek mythology. This is why Oletus Manor is filled with artistic and mythological elements. Dennis even designed the family emblem using the symbol of the 9 muses. Musical notes and harp motifs were added to honor his wife's musical background and their shared devotion to art. To carry out the extensive renovations, Dennis hired many workers, partly to support the local economy as well. Among them were 2 key individuals, Burke Lapadura and Bane Perez. Burke Lapadura was a highly talented and promising architect. Earlier records listed him as the chief of security, but recent lore suggests he was actually the manor's chief architect. He had once been offered a position at an Academy of Arts, and although it felt like a dream opportunity, he was forced to turn it down. There were several reasons, but the most significant was that he had already accepted the construction job at Oletus Manor. His 6th letter mentions that both Burke and the DeRoss family eventually became well acquainted. The DeRoss family later gave him space and materials to pursue experimental projects for the manor, such as movable walls, mechanized stairs, and conveyor tracks for delivering meals. One of his experiments even involved creating a robot to help him with his tasks, as he was exhausted by the repetitive work required of an architect. However, he noted that he still needed more parts to complete it. The second important worker was Bain Perez, who was likely hired as the chief forest ranger. His job was to guard and manage the forest surrounding the manor. This forest would later become an important location in Alice's story, as it held one of the secret entrances to Oletus Manor. After Burke and Bain joined the staff, Dennis hired more people to assist with the renovation. Among the newcomers was a couple with a young son, around 2 or 3 years old at the time. This little boy was fascinated by Burke's work and often tried to sneak into his workshop to watch him build. Although Burke acted annoyed, he did not truly dislike the child. From various events, it is hinted that Burke gradually grew fond of him. After some time, Burke finally completed his long-term project, a fully functioning robot. Since it was his 26th attempt, he named it Number 26. The robot worked as intended and became a major accomplishment for Burke. To improve its efficiency, he granted Number 26 a high degree of autonomy, allowing it to handle emergency situations on its own. According to Bain's backstory, he worked at the manor for 7 years. This makes it reasonable to conclude that the infamous manor incident occurred after this 7-year period. If we refer to this timeline, it suggests that both Bain and Burke began working at the manor around 18 to 80. From this, we can deduce that approximately 1 year after their arrival, the DeRoss household celebrated a significant event, the birth of their daughter, Alice DeRoss. She was born on the 5th of May, 1881. This timeline is taken from Alice's backstory, the Oletus Manor backstory, as well as Burke's deduction quest all together. When Alice was born, the little boy from the worker couple Dennis had hired was already around 3 years old. Since Oletus Manor sat in such a remote and quiet area, there were no other kids nearby. Naturally, he became her only playmate. Growing up together made them really close. With loving parents and a gentle friend always by her side, Alice grew into a cheerful, polite, and happy child. The two spent most of their days playing together and exploring whatever they could. From the 2022 Christmas event, we get a hint that they loved playing hide-and-seek in the forest. You can also see little references to this in the little girl skin called Nostalgic Blue and the novelist skin Forest. Because they often wandered into the woods, Bain, who was in charge of the forest, became worried and reported it to Burke. Burke tried to address it through his robot, but honestly, he was secretly relieved because the boy was no longer sneaking into his workshop and getting in the way of his projects. The two children had a lot of favorite activities. In Ashes of Memory 1, Alice says the boy enjoyed writing and often read his stories to her. And from Time of Reunion and the Orfeo event, we learn they liked acting out the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, with the boy playing Orpheus and Alice as Eurydice. They performed this little play so often that it became a big part of their bond, and it later became the reason he would be known as Orpheus in the game. While Burke felt relieved that the boy was no longer bothering him, he forgot something important. The children still paid attention to his robot, Number 26. Burke had given the robot a high level of autonomy, and because of that, it slowly started developing self-awareness. He was shocked when the robot eventually named itself Bonbon. The name actually came from Alice. When she first met the robot, she cheerfully said, "Nice to meet you, Bonbon." That simple greeting stuck with the robot. Burke was annoyed because he believed tools did not need names or personalities. He tried rewriting the robot's program several times to erase its identity, but no matter how many times he rebooted it, the same message would always play. It was Alice's voice saying, "Nice to meet you, Bonbon." There is a popular theory, based on Bonbon's last deduction quest, that Burke never truly deleted that voice recording. If that is true, it suggests that beneath his grumpy attitude, he had a much softer side. Maybe hearing that little greeting from Alice meant something to him. Even if he would never admit it, I like to think he was secretly happy that his creation brought joy to Alice and Orpheus. While Burke spent his days working on his inventions, Bain was busy taking care of the forest. He was deeply committed to his job and genuinely loved the work. From his backstory, we know that serving the DeRoss family was something he took pride in, and he hoped to stay with them for the rest of his life. He was a warm and gentle person at heart. As the forest ranger, Bane's responsibility was to protect the woods from intruders, especially poachers. He did his job well, but even when he caught people trespassing, he never harmed anyone. One of his deduction quests shows that he preferred scaring poachers away instead of arresting them. There is a touching moment where poachers abandoned one of their own, a young boy who got caught in an animal trap. Bane freed the boy and let him go. This moment shows that Bane has a warm heart and was very kind. But even though he was a gentle person, the constant poacher trouble did wear him down. He once asked Burke to create something that could help protect the forest. Burke agreed, but the device malfunctioned and almost set the whole forest on fire. Bane was furious, because the forest meant everything to him. Still, even though he was angry, he did not stay upset for long. He and Burke had a strong friendship, and it appears to me that Bane, initially, was not the type to hold a grudge. His heart was too soft for that. One day, there was also a particularly touching moment in Bane's story. During one of his patrols, he found a weak and abandoned elk calf trapped and unable to stand. He rescued the calf, took care of it, and named it Black Nose. With his care, Black Nose recovered and eventually became the leader of a moose herd. Bane once said that Black Nose gave him new hope, which shows just how meaningful that bond was to him. His kindness was not something he kept to himself. From Burke's and Bonbon's deduction quests, and from the Manor's map lore, we know the DeRoss family hired many people. Burke worried it might be risky to employ so many, but it appears that he never really voiced his concerns. Dennis and his wife, on the other hand, simply wanted to help people who needed work. From this alone, we can imply that the DeRoss were generous individuals who cared deeply about their community. As for Burke, he continued acting annoyed whenever Alice and Orpheus distracted him. But it is clear he cared for them more than he ever let on. Personally, I believe he never removed Alice's voice from Bonbon's memory, not because he could not, but because he did not want to. That single "nice to meet you, Bonbon" probably meant a lot more to him than he realized. All these small moments, from Bane's kindness to Burke's unspoken warmth, combined with the joy Alice and Orpheus shared, create a picture of a surprisingly peaceful and wholesome life at the manor. Nevertheless, we all knew by now that the peaceful life was temporary. The tragedy that would turn everything upside down for Alice was already approaching. Burke had always worried when Dennis decided to bring in so many workers to the manor. Something inside him felt uneasy, as if letting too many strangers cross the threshold would eventually invite disaster. Sadly, his fear was not misplaced. According to Orpheus's second letter and the time of reunion event, Orpheus's mother had become gravely ill. One clue even suggests she was diagnosed with severe lung cancer, and her treatment pushed the family into a downward spiral of financial ruin. The novelist's second letter implies that Orpheus's father borrowed money to cover the costs. The lender was later thrown in prison, and many believed he had been a loan shark. At first, the borrowed money went toward treatment at an expensive private clinic. Perhaps the family held on to a final fragment of hope, believing that better medical care might save her. But as her condition worsened, they ran out of options. Eventually, they could no longer afford to keep her there and were forced to transfer her to a mission hospital. For context, a mission hospital is a hospital with minimal resources and often used by those who can no longer pay for anything else. That decision alone shows how desperate the family had become. During this time, Dennis and his wife noticed the family's struggle. They worried for them and wondered whether they should offer help. Whether they ever did remains unknown. What is certain is that her illness became the beginning of a chain of tragedies that would swallow all of them. Realizing his wife's condition had worsened beyond what they could manage, Orpheus's father began committing something terrible. According to Bonbon's deduction quest, Orpheus's father either told or forced Orpheus to steal from the manor to repay their growing debts. Burke noticed something was wrong but chose not to punish Orpheus harshly. Orpheus took the blame himself, and perhaps Denis, with his gentle heart, forgave him. With that forgiveness, Orpheus stayed at the manor. Soon after, something incredibly important was stolen, something that acted like a master key to the manor. It was not a traditional key. It was a piccolo that played the Nightingale song, and this song could open every door in the manor. Denis and his wife had once gifted the piccolo to Orpheus. Orpheus accidentally told his parents what it could do, and from there, his parents somehow managed to take it from him.
That piccolo, is that a gift?
That's the key.
How interesting. It sounds like
Like the Nightingale.
How exactly his father got the piccolo remains unclear. Different stories offer different explanations. In the affection system, Orpheus was walking in the woods when he discovered the piccolo was missing from his belongings. When he rushed home, the raid had already started.
It was time for him to head home, but he suddenly realized that the piccolo his parents gave him to signal for the gates to be opened had gone missing. He started walking toward the manor's gates, while worrying if he would be able to make it inside. Yet, he found the gates wide open. Beyond the gates, his forever peaceful and happy home was hell on earth. Belongings had been looted, rooms destroyed, and his parents were lying in a pool of blood.
In the Cage of Yesteryear, Orpheus lost the piccolo in the jungle, but he was present at the manor when the raid began. For now, it is simplest to accept that Orpheus's father somehow gained possession of the piccolo. Whether driven by greed or pure desperation, Orpheus's father later colluded with bandits and planned a raid on the manor using the piccolo as the key. Some fans believe that, according to the novelist's video backstory, Orpheus himself played the tune that unlocked the gate. Why he would do so remains uncertain. Somehow, Orpheus's mother was aware of the plan as well, but whether she supported it from the shadows or simply did nothing to stop it is unknown. After the gate was opened, trouble began in Bane's forest. A group of poachers trespassed into the woods and killed Black Nose. Bane was devastated. Consumed by grief and anger, he opened fire on them, but they outnumbered him and eventually captured him. Among the poachers was someone Bane had once spared. Years earlier, a young boy had stepped into one of Bane's traps and had been abandoned by his companions. Bane freed him and let him go. Now that same boy betrayed him. In a cruel display of mockery, the poachers cut out Bane's tongue and forced Black Nose's severed head onto him. They chased him through the woods until he stumbled into one of his own traps. Up to this point, there is still something I struggle to understand. Something I want to address to all of you. According to Bane's backstory, this incident happened in late autumn, around November or December in the Northern Hemisphere. However, the Cage of Yesteryear, which takes place in May, seems to imply that Bane's tragedy either happened close to or exactly on the same day as the Manor incident. I am honestly unsure whether Bane's suffering took place in May or December. If you have theories or context, feel free to share them. For now, I will go with the assumption that Bane's incident happened on the same day as the Manor raid, on May 5th. This assumption is based on the most recent Cage of Yesteryear event. Please note that this date is not canon. After being chased and falling into his own trap, nobody knew what had become of Bane. His fate seemed sealed, yet the hounds he cared for so deeply refused to abandon him. Trapped and starving in the patrol hut, they broke free, followed his scent, and dragged his wounded body home. Somehow, against all odds, he was still alive. Using the Manor's forest as their entry point, the bandits, including the poachers who attacked Bane, moved in. Their first move was to disable the family by cutting the electricity. Orpheus's sickly mother, Mistress Blanche, decided to contact Burke for help, but never returned. This detail slightly supports the theory that she may have been an accomplice. There is also the clue from the time of reunion, where Orpheus discovers a shattered family portrait, hinting that something had gone wrong within the household long before the raid. While it is believed that the poachers participated in the raid, the identity of the bandits as a whole remains unclear. One theory connects them to Jose's father Joaquin, something I discussed in a different lore analysis. The time of reunion event hints that the bandits were not from the nearby city and had been hiding in the forest for some time.
They encountered some strangers in the woods. The city folks?
Doesn't seem like it. Those drifters. They worry me. Maybe we should inform Bane and Burke.
What happened next becomes complicated because the Cage of Yesteryear and the Ashes of Memory storyline, along with the affection system, offer different versions of the same night. If we follow the affection system, Orpheus had wandered into the forest to visit the rangers. The forest felt strangely quiet. On his way back, he noticed the piccolo was gone. When he reached the manor, chaos had already taken hold. The building was ransacked and burning. He ran inside, searching for the DeRoss family. Ashes of Memory 2 presents another version. In this one, Dennis, desperate to save his daughter, told someone, either Orpheus or his wife, to take Alice and escape without looking back. He was killed soon after. Alice's mother hid her beneath a bed before she was murdered. Orpheus later found Alice and tried to comfort her. He told her she was brave, and, before the two got captured by bandits, promised Alice that they would eventually meet again.
Shh! Don't be afraid. We'll meet again.
But if we follow the Cage of Yesteryear, the interpretation changes again. Orpheus was with the DeRoss family, helping prepare Alice's birthday celebration. During this time, the electricity went out. Mistress Blanche and Mistress DeRoss went to investigate separately. Soon after, a commotion erupted, and Orpheus went to check. Eventually, Alice herself went to look for everyone. In the dining hall, Alice found a trail of blood leading to the kitchen, where she discovered her mother dying. Orpheus found her soon after, and together they tried to remain silent. 3 bandits arrived. One of them finished Mistress Blanche off. Alice, unable to control her fear, screamed. The bandits spotted them and chased them through the manor. Both Orpheus and Alice fled to the master bedroom. Orpheus comforted her and told her to hide under the bed while he hid inside the wardrobe. The bandits then dragged Dennis's dying body into the room and threw him onto the floor. Dennis saw Alice under the bed and motioned for her to stay silent. After ransacking the bedroom, one of the bandits finished a knee right in front of his daughter. Alice froze in shock. When the bandit bent down to check under the bed, Orpheus burst out of the wardrobe, drawing their attention and luring them away from Alice. In doing so, he saved her life. Alice was left alone in the darkness, trembling and crying quietly beneath the bed. That night, the manor fell. Dennis and his wife died, and many others vanished without a trace. Burke survived the raid, but the guilt nearly destroyed him. Because he had always been fiercely loyal to the DeRoss family, he blamed himself for everything that happened. From that day on, he swore he would never allow a tragedy like that again. He disappeared from public view and threw himself completely into rebuilding Bonbon, turning the once gentle robot into a full combat unit. This was likely the moment Bonbon became the Guard 26 we know today. Bane also lived through the attack, but the experience changed him forever. Between the poacher's cruelty and the chaos at the manor, he was left mentally and emotionally shattered. He refused to take off the elk head they had forced onto him, choosing instead to wear it like a second skin. He became quiet, ruthless, and deeply protective of the forest he once cared for so lovingly. Over time, people started calling the place he guarded the Forest of No Return. Orpheus and Alice were eventually separated and abandoned. Orpheus survived, but disappeared. When he finally resurfaced, he was no longer the gentle boy everyone knew. Bane's second letter and the Hollow Skin story say that Orpheus was consumed by anger and the desire for revenge. Season 18. Essence 3 even suggests he lost himself completely and began performing hidden medical experiments. It is possible he hoped to erase Alice's memories, believing she had suffered too much to bear. Alice, on the other hand, fell further and further into hysteria. After the raid, the police named her the only survivor. The newspapers called her the Girl of Doom. People whispered that she was cursed. Eventually, she was taken far from Glasgow and ended up in Devonshire, England, and placed in White Sand Street Asylum. The tragedy at Oletus Manor became the foundation for everything that would later happen in the Manor games, including the events involving Alice herself. 15 years after the massacre, she returned to Oletus Manor, hoping to find the boys she once knew and uncover the truth about what really happened that night. And with that, the peaceful life they once shared was gone forever, replaced by mysteries, grief, and a story that still haunts the halls of the manor. Well, that's all the story I can share about the Oletus Manor incident. There are still many details scattered across different events, letters, and character stories, and I'm sure other fans have their own interpretations too. If you want to dive even deeper, I really recommend discussing it with other players and exploring the lore together, be it from files, discussions, and such alike. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.